Welcome to another video of WhatsApp series. In this video we will add Sinch to our projects. For that, first of all, go to the same repository on GitHub and just clone this repository from here. It's downloaded, just extract it and rename it and first of all, in order to test this, we need to open that check if that works, and then we will add that to our project. So for that, just go to the path where you have created that project. So I'm going to Sinch project video calling app, and I'm going to open it in the new window. If I go back to the repository, we can see they have listed out all the instructions of that how to add this Sinch API to our project. For example, you have to register your app and then you have to create account, create an app, verify your phone number. I have done those things. Click get started button and then create an app. So I've done all those steps, and the next thing they say is fill the required details as host and click create button and select video calling, then choose Android. So you need to make these steps to download their SDK. So if I go get back here, okay, so you need to come here. It's sinch.com/doc/video android index.html. so they have listed out the whole algorithm of how to use their SDK. So first of all, we need to register our app in the developer account. We have done that. Set up a new application, we have also done that. Next is download Sinch SDK, and you can download it from here. And the next is add Sinch library. This Sinch library is distributed in R format to use in your project. Either copy the .R files to the libs folder and edit the builder Gradle file, or using Android Studio, choose file new module, import jar package option. Running ProGuard, just skip this step, you don't need this, and then they are explaining how to use that. It's pretty much old project, so we need to update everything here to make it work. Then you need to add permissions to your project, and this is a Sinch client. You need to set respect native calls false, verify manifest. This Sinch.check method can be used before starting the client, that if the manifest file doesn't contain all these permissions and it is not set correctly, then it will throw an exception. So it should be called for safety before starting the Sinch client, and then it comes to the Sinch client. We need to start the Sinch client and provide the application key which we have got from the dashboard, and then application secret, and then this environment host, and then the user ID, the user we want to, the user we are, I mean your own ID you are logged in as. Just forget this project, just close it. It's, I think, difficult to build because it's old project, so we are going to add manually. First of all, just download the SDK from here. We need to download Android, so I'm going to download Android. Download at the same place, open folder, extract it, so it has two things, sorry, it's one thing only. So it has docs, libs. This file is very important, this .aar file. So if I go back to the documentation, and the next it says is go to your build.gradle file and add this thing. So I'm going to my build.gradle file. Inside this Gradle file, what we need to add is this thing. This is the project level build.gradle file. We need to add it like so, and we can also check that if we are adding it rightly or not. We can go to the source of this project, sorry, this project, and get to its build.gradle file and check where it has added that. It hasn't added it inside this one, so if I go to app build.gradle, I think we need to add this inside here, because this is also repository, so we don't have to add another one. And then we need to go to project level, and here add implementation, app level Gradle file, and add implementation, and then just copy this, copy this one, and just move it up here. Perfect. So we have added Sinch. Just sync the project. Let's see if it works or not. It's failed to resolve this plus. We need to add a specific variant here. So let's check the variant of this file. It's 3.15.0. 3.15.0. Oh, sorry, we have missed a step. That's why it's not being able to resolve it. Just copy this R file and just Control Z to the original position it was, and then go to the Java folder, app folder, Java folder, and let me see where we need to paste it. Inside app there is a libs folder, we need to paste it here. So let's check where is that. I think we need to go to project view, and then this is the libs folder. Just paste that R file here, and now try again. Perfect. So we have successfully added Sinch to our project. So now we can move further and add these permissions. We have already added these internet and access permissions, I think. So let's copy these four and just go to Android view, manifest file, android.manifest file, and paste the other permissions here. We have already added the internet permission, so we don't need to add it again. So we have added the permissions. Next step is so we need to check the manifest, that if it is alright then we can move further. So we can call this function in our fragment, Sinch client dot. So first of all, let's create the Sinch client here. Create Sinch client, go to calls adapter, and here now we have added our Sinch service class. So if you alt press enter on it and just add this to manifest file. So now this is added to manifest and warning will be gone. The other warning is for typo, so that doesn't need to be corrected. So first of all, just change these values. This should be the app key of our app, which we have added in our fragment, calls fragment. We need to paste those values here. So if I get here, where we have done a big mistake, that I made all those changes in the adapter. I forgot to add these things inside our calls fragment. I thought that we are adding these inside calls fragment. Just copy out these functions from here and bring them inside the calls fragment. It was calling and there was another listen for calls. Where is that function? Sorry, it's inside adapter. This here it is. Just copy this one also and come back here and just paste it in here. We no more need to listen for calls because this stuff is being done inside this Sinch service. If you go to the Sinch service, it's also creating the same client, and we don't need to do that here explicitly inside this one. So we don't need to mm, do this whole stuff here. What we need to do is just comment out everything from here which we have just added. Now go to the Sinch service class again, and this start function creates the Sinch client and starts that, and stop function stops it. And there is a service, this on bind, this Sinch service interface extends binder. So this is used to communicate with this service. If we want to get this start the client, then we will call this function, and these functions we can call these functions to communicate with this call. So I'm going to display you something interesting. This says this one, this is important, this function will be called whenever we receive a new call. Whenever we receive a new call, this function will be called, and a new intent of the activity will be created, the activity that will be started when the incoming when we receive a call. When we receive a call, this activity is going to be started. So we need to add this also to the manifest. This activity will be started whenever we receive a call. So it has something that is not resolved yet, so just alt plus enter on it. It is asking me to implement another method that is called on video track resumed and paused. These are for video call. So let's alright, so we have added everything that was required. Let's resolve this one too. First we need to test this, then I will explain step by step how this whole stuff works, what is this giant of code, what it is doing actually. So now we need to go to our calls and add a click listener to the button we need to actually make contact with the adapter, calls adapter. Whenever that particular calls button is pressed, we need to start the calls activity, this call screen activity that will call the particular user. So for that, if I get to the call screen activity, what it is accepting from us is, if I go to its on create function, it is expecting a call ID to be passed to it. It is expecting to be the a call ID to be passed to it through intent. So we will pass a call ID, and anything else is it expecting? No. So only we need to pass this call ID to this one. If I go to the project, sorry, this one, and if I go to the main activity here and open it in another editor, what it is doing is it is actually starting the call screen activity. So let's see how it is doing that. Whenever this login is clicked, it is logging the user in, and then it is starting this Sinch client. So it would be implementing base activity and implementing Sinch service. and it is also asking for permissions. So we need to make all of these changes inside our login activity. So if I go to our login activity, where is that? I think that was main activity. So if I get here, then we need to extend it from, instead of base activity, app compat activity, we can extend it from base activity that we have created here, this one. So we will extend this one from base activity and implement this Sinch service. Let me check what's that. Sinch service dot start failed listener. Just paste it here and it will ask to implement a function. So now we need to add certain things from this code. First of all, we need to check for permissions. I'm adding it here. So it will ask for permissions to record audio and camera, and then we need to override these methods. For example, this method. Here, remove this one. So this will be called whenever this Sinch service is started. So it will register a listener. So this is where the place call activity is started. We need to paste this function inside our calls activity, inside our calls fragment here at the bottom, and just import these things. Calls dot get context. Just call the function get context to get the context. I'm just removing this whole stuff here. This too, because we don't need it anymore. Perfect. So it's clean now. If I go back to the on this one, and the next it is doing is it is checking for if the Sinch service is started or not. So we need to check it for that. Also inside our login activity, that is main activity, if I go to again inside my main activity, I need to check for, I need to make a function public void check Sinch status. So here we need to pass in the user ID we have. For example, we can get it by firebase or dot get instance dot get uid. So we can get it from here, and we need to just remove this, and we need to call this function when users tries to log in. Alright, so if user is logged in, then this I think we need to this whole stuff inside this function when user is logged in, and we start another activity where we are doing that. Let me get to that place. Control F, home. Here we have, so we need to make sure here that if, and we can pass in the user.id, or we can get it from auth again, firebase auth dot get instance dot get uid. So we can get it like that, and we can check that if this is not started, then we will ask it to start. Alright, so I think we are done with it. So let's check if anything remaining. Just implement the method, and it has on started and on stopped. So whenever it is started, then we can start the activity instead of. So let's keep these both empty. So now if I go to the calls activity, whenever the button is pressed, we need to call this open place call function activity. So we need to call this function whenever the user clicks that particular button. So I'm just going there, inside fragment calls, and that button is inside adapter. So we need to get to the calls adapter here, and here inside calls adapter, item view dot set on click listener. Whenever this is pressed, then we need to pass this information to, we can actually start the activity from here. So let's bring that function here. So this needs is a context. It needs is context, and it should be activity context, so it can start activity like this. So we need to call this function here. Instead of doing this stuff, we can call this function open place call activity. Or even what we can do is just copy this and paste it here. Just remove this function for simplicity. So this will, what this will do is this will call this place call activity. This will open this activity, and from here we have to enter a user to call that user, but we don't need to do that. Let me change this also. Let's just get it to its view and see what it is doing. So whenever we will provide it a username to call that particular user, it will make a phone call to that. We don't need to do this. We don't need to come to this activity. We want to call the user whenever that particular button is pressed. We don't want another extra activity to do that. So for that purpose, I'm going again to this place call activity, and checking. We need to pass this activity the user id. It can get that user id from context, the user we want to make a phone call, so we can get that by string id is equal to get intent dot get extra string extra, and name is going to be user id. So this is going to be the name, and next is going to be, this needs to be global, so I'm going to make it global. Alright, so next call button is clicked. Whenever this call button is clicked, we don't need to get that text from there, and we need to just pass in the id and make a phone call to that and start the new activity. Alright, so I also don't want this call button to be clicked. I want to call this function without clicking the button. So how can I do that? Just get here and do this like this. Alright, so now just go back to the adapter and just control Z to go back to the previous state, because we want to send the user ID to the activity. So we can do that here like this. Just change this to the key we have added here. If I get here, is user underscore ID, and next message is activity we need to start is place call activity. So just change it here. That's it, that's totally fine. I think this will work perfectly fine, but I'm not sure. Let's test it. Is here any error? There is some error. Alright, so here is the error. Now it's perfectly fine. So first of all, run it on this emulator. Then I have to start another emulator because I want to make a phone call to another user. It has some issues. Call screen, is there call screen .xml? There is something that is missing from here, and what's that? Let me check that. Okay, so it has some property color grayish that we don't have. This one, this is here. So I'm going to just create this inside our colors.xml. So if I get to my resources, values, cancel values and colors, I can add another color here, color, and it is going to be grayish in color, grayish. Let me grab the spellings. And its value needs to be hash fff7 because it need to be gray. So let me make it another f here, or you can make it 77. No, it's yellow. Alright, so next we need to run it again. There is another error. What's that? Let me check it. There is another color that is Sinch purple. So we need to also have here a purple color. Let's add a purple color here, Android. Just restart it again. Okay, app is started successfully. Let's get to the call section and just try to make a call. I know that there is no other user online, but still I'm trying to make a phone call. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's an error because we haven't given the permissions yet. So let's start it again.